Hello everybody, this is David. Welcome back to my channel. This video is the next in our series, The Christian Ethic in the 21st Century, and we're currently looking at person-to-person ethics. And we are in the last few videos of this series, and we're currently looking at how does the Christian ethic work out on a day-to-day basis in the modern era, in this century, the century in which we live, the time in which we live. And we've discovered that no period of history has been easy for the Christian to live in, to live a holy life, to live a pure and chaste life. Going on the history of the types of societies that have been there before us, looking at the Greek societies and the Roman societies and just how decadent they were and in a sense so immoral they were. And the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. So what I wanted to do in this video is look at some aspects of marriage that we may never have thought about. Now, of course, Jesus' command, and I'm going to read this now, Jesus' commands on marriage are found in two places. In Matthew chapter 5 verse 3 from verse 31, which is part of the Sermon on the Mount, and this is what he says. Furthermore, it has been said, well actually let's start at verse 27, which is speaking about adultery in the heart. You have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that whoever looks at a woman to lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out and cast it from you. For it is more profitable for you that one of your members perish than for your whole body to be cast into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and cast it from you. For it is more profitable for you that one of your members perish than for your whole body to be cast into hell. And continuing with verse 31, furthermore, it has been said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that whoever divorces his wife for any reason except sexual immorality causes her to commit adultery, and whoever marries a woman who is divorced commits adultery. And if we go over to Mark chapter 10, verse 1 to 12, we read, Then he arose from there, that's Jesus, he arose from there and came to the region of Judea by the other side of the Jordan. And the multitudes gathered to him again, and as he was accustomed, he taught them again. The Pharisees came and asked him, Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife? They said this to test him. And he answered and said to them, What did Moses command you? They said, Moses permitted a man to write a certificate of divorce and to dismiss her. And Jesus answered and said to them, Because of the hardness of your heart, he wrote to you this precept. But from the beginning of the creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So then they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let not man separate. In the house, his disciples also asked him again about the same matter. So he said to them, Whoever divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery against her. And if a woman divorces her husband and marries another, she commits adultery. So that's quite serious, really. Jesus was saying, no divorce. But what we have to be careful of is that we do not make the words of Jesus into a law and forget that the greatest thing of all is love. We have to remember that we have to take any situation, we have to take to any situation the whole message of Jesus, not just one sentence from it. Now, I'm not thinking about the kind of situation in which two people have entered into marriage without thought and without facing the realities, nor am I thinking of the kind of situation in which the partners in a marriage wish to break the marriage up simply because the initial romance and glamour are gone and they don't have the moral fibre or the staying power to face the routine of every day. I am not thinking of the kind of situation in which people think of life together in terms of soft lights and sweet music and never realise until too late that there are such things as kitchen sinks, pots and pans, crying babies, washing nappies, or changing nappies, should I say. Still less am I thinking of the marriage which allows a relationship to develop, which outside the marriage, of course, which is in itself the way to disloyalty. Now, this kind of thing happens all the time. People don't consider what it is to be married. It's interesting, actually, that in the Jewish system and in many cultures around the world, they have what's called a betrothal or an engagement, which lasts a year, and they use that year to think on and to prepare themselves for marriage. And in those cultures, generally speaking, marriages last really, really well. So what should we say about two people who find living together an impossibility? They've been to the doctor, they've been to the minister, they've been to the priest, they've been to the psychologist and the psychiatrist. Now, if they've taken all the guidance that there is, and if the situation is still beyond mending, is it an act of Christian love to keep those two people together, tied together in a life of torture? Is it not right for them to be allowed to separate and allowed to try to start again? In those circumstances, is the divorce an act of Christian love? Would Jesus have insisted that two totally incompatible people should be condemned to drag out a loveless existence, heartbreaking for themselves and disastrous for their children? Should they not be allowed to remarry and to remarry with the blessing of the church? Is there such a thing as an innocent or not innocent party in such a marriage as this? When a marriage breaks up, I doubt if there is altogether such a thing as a totally innocent or a totally guilty party. These are questions that we must face. These things happen. We know about these things. I'm sure you know. You've come across this kind of marriage before. What are we to do with those people? Should we make them stay together just because Jesus says, I forbid a person to, we maybe take that out of context? Is not the loving thing to do to be able to allow them to maybe start again? Anyway, it's a very good question. Let me just say, I believe that marriage is for life. I believe that God has ordained one man and one woman in a marriage for life, but we live in a sinful world. We live in a world that's not perfect, and some people just can't do it. Some people just cannot manage to be married, to stay married, should I say. What are we to do with them? And I said, it's not about those that have got married without thinking, those who have gone off and had an affair. No, we all know people that should never have got married. But anyway, there we are. It's a very important question to think about, actually. What do we do with this command? How do we show love to those that are struggling in their marriage? How do we minister to them? How should we tell them, yeah, you must stay together because that's what Jesus said? Or should we give them the opportunity to try again? It's very interesting, and there's so many ministries out there that deal with this kind of thing, that help those that are struggling. Yes, ideally, in the ideal world, a man and a woman would live together for life in marriage, in the bond of perfect peace. But what do we do about those people that just can't? What do we do about that? What is the loving thing to do there, going on the ideal? Now, of course, we're not talking about those people that just decide that they don't want to be married anymore. Of course, some people try and try and try and try, and yet they can't do it. What do we do then? What is the loving thing to do with them? You know, Jesus said, "Come unto me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." What is Jesus' rest in this situation? I'll leave you to think about that, and maybe you could let me know in the comments. So I want to thank you for joining me in this video. In next video, we're going to be talking about sex inside and outside marriage. So I want to thank you for joining me in this video. See you on the next one. Bye bye.